Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Cicero Planning Board meeting. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Snyder, would you lead us off?
Wait a minute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
You okay now, boss?
First order of business is the approval of the minutes from the November 16th meeting. Any questions or comments? Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve is printed.
Second,
Mr. Duval?
yes.
Mr. Abbey?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Bloss?
Yes.
And I vote yes, minutes have been approved. Now we'll open the meeting to public comment. If there's anybody here that would like to address the board on any active application, you may do so now.
How are we doing?
Jim, go ahead, Jim. You give it your name, please.
Yep, my name's Jay Party. I live at 5980 Schneller Road in Brewerton. I typed up this big thing, but I'm not going to get into all of it. As far as all the pollutants and potential hazards to well water. As I spoke before with the different metals and stuff that they're going to be using, they referred specifically to the solar panels and not the actual framing and everything, so on and so forth, with the galvanizing putting in the water, which we no longer use in potable water in any facilities or housing or residential or anything like that. So my concern is if my well does get contaminated along with the other wells, what are they going to do about it, or what is the town going to do about it in the event that that happens? There's 3 shallow dug wells, which is an underground water vein. That's a shallow water vein underground that runs through it. So it's a constant flow of water. You put all these galvanized poles in the ground, it's the same as your water running through galvanized pipe. If they hit that vein, and how many pipes are they going to put in the ground? I-beams, post pipes, or whatever. Also, I have on here in section 208-8 permitting requirements for tier 3 solar energy systems. The town board will strive to permit the location of tier 3 solar energy systems in such a manner so that no one area or neighborhood in the town would be overburdened by the placement of tier 3 solar energy systems. As we all know, we have one visible from Schneller Road. That's probably less than 1/8 of a mile from where this proposed site is. So that's something to take into consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Please come on up.
Hi, Mike DeVero, 6032 Sneller Road. So I'm here to offer comments about the Mud Mill Solar Farm project, and it appears as item agenda number 2. So I would have rather have spoken just before that, but you want to do that now, right?
Well, here's the good news. Benderson the
Oh.
applicant has requested to be pulled, so we're gonna have a discussion on that, but we're gonna move it to the end, so.
Good. Okay, so it'll be fresh.
Yes.
That was my concern. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I spoke at the last planning board meeting, provided all of the relevant citations in the zoning regulations, in which I hope you've looked at and digested. After that meeting, Mr. D'Arcangelo, the engineer for the project, connected with me and went to the job site with me. I met him there. I want to say that was very much appreciated. It should be acknowledged. I don't know that many engineers would have taken the time or, bother to do that. He was very professional. It was above and beyond. So it's an indication that they want to do the right thing. I showed Mr. D'Arcangelo the view of the proposed site from Mud Mill Road and from all other viewpoints, from my standpoint, which I think you asked them to go look at that and present that tonight. I don't see an issue from the other viewpoints, but I'll let him make that case. However, the view from Mud Mill Road, in my opinion, needs to be addressed. If you haven't driven past the site on Mud Mill Road, I would highly encourage you to do that. What I have here is a picture of that site.
Thank you.
you. The relevance of that is that there is very little to no screening right now, natural screening that exists. And I don't know the exact measurements, but I'm guessing it's about 200 to 300 feet. Those trees that you see are about 200 to 300 feet from the road. So the regulations are pretty clear. 208-10 F2, solar energy systems greater than 10 acres shall be required to submit a screening and landscaping plan to show adequate measures to screen through landscaping, grading, and other means so that the views of the solar panels and solar energy equipment shall be minimized as reasonably practical from public roadways. So I know that there's a focus typically on neighbors and the impact of neighbors. However, it's clear that the regulations took into account and contemplated public roadways in our neighborhoods that we drive by every day. So that's where I come from, is that I'm going to drive by that project every day, and I'd like it to be developed in accordance with the regulations. The site plan that I saw on the website, it includes plantings. However, there was not enough detail, or any detail that I could see, unless I missed it, that explained the number of trees that would be planted, the type of trees, and where they would be planted. They were plopped onto the sketch plan. So if there is such a detailed landscape plan that exists and that might be presented after my comments, then I wouldn't have a chance to comment on that right now because I haven't seen it. And it may exist and it may be presented. In my opinion, the other point I'd like to raise, in the previous in the board meeting, in a previous board meeting, Mr. Palumbo indicated on the 16th of November, and again, this would have been in the minutes. However, the minutes weren't on the website for this past meeting, as late as maybe 10 o'clock this morning when I checked. I didn't see the minutes.
They won't go in until they're approved. Which will be
Okay.
tonight.
So, okay, all right. But where I'm going to go is from those minutes. From those minutes, Mr. Palumbo stated that he felt, and I can't quote him because I don't have the minutes, but in general, he had stated that he wanted to go for a blending type effect, and instead of a planting that would be like a wall of trees that would, screen the entire site. In his opinion, the blending would have more of a natural effect. And I don't really understand how that's possible to have solar panels blended in with trees be a natural effect. So in my opinion, that comment really didn't make a lot of sense to me. So I'd be interested. I'm hoping that the new plan does provide adequate coverage. I'd like to also show you pictures of McKinley Road, what the previous gentleman had mentioned. Thank you. So this is the view from McKinley Road of the solar project. I think if you drive by physically, it'll even stand out more to you. So obviously that was not properly screened from public roadways. Granted, that project, those solar panels are closer to the road than the proposed project. No question. But you know, these panels, I don't know. I know there was a moratorium, there were different changes in regulations, and there were time, and this application came in at various times, and there might have been a timing impact. I have no idea, and obviously we can't revisit that now. All I could do is show you what it looks like. And what we want, in my opinion, what we want to avoid, and what clearly the regulations that we're talking about wants to avoid. One more picture. I'm going to show you a picture of that McKinley project from the back, which I did previously. This is from the back of that project from Sneller Road. The viewpoint, when you compare this picture to the picture I gave you of the view from Mud Mill Road of the Mud Mill Road project, put them side by side, and you're going to see what we end up with without adequate screening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This is in process. Obviously, the panels aren't even on yet. These are just the posts. But you could see that there were scattered deciduous trees that already exist. And when you put it side by side to Mud Mill, you could see that the Mud Mill project, there's similar type trees, but even fewer. The distance that you're looking at on the McKinley project from the rear is, in my estimation, and anyway, the engineer could tell you better, but I'm guessing it's maybe 100 feet even further than what you're going to have on Mud Mill. That Mud Mill project is probably about 100 feet closer to the road than what you're looking at on the Sneller Road project, on the McKinley project from Sneller. On the sketch plan, I had estimated, based on, my rudimentary ruler on that plan and trying to use the scale, it looks like the span from the road on Mud Mill is about 1,500 feet wide of visibility. There is a house and some trees in the middle, but I would, to me, to obtain the proper screening, there should be evergreens planted so that the screening is year round, and those evergreens should be planted, about 15 feet apart, and there should be 2 rows staggered instead of one single row. It should be, diagonal, staggered. And if they were 15 feet apart, we're looking at around 200 evergreens. And I'm not sure what will be proposed here, but I'm hoping it's going to be in that neighborhood. And then the last thing I would ask is that clarification that once the project's approved and it goes through and the town board issues the special use permit and that project is developed and whatever plannings end up being there, that they aren't done in accordance with the sketch plan, with the site plan. And also that if any trees were to die or not grow properly, that those would be code violations, and that the code officer would have to enforce that and require the owner to either replace the tree or correct the problem. My concern also with the trees, I'm not a landscape architect, but I'm telling you, I've planted thousands of trees. And our soil, if evergreens don't do well in this, real, and especially near a wet area like what you have on Mud Mill on that project. So my concern would be that those trees are planted well enough in front of that wetland so that they are able to grow properly. If they're too close to that wetland, they'll get saturated. Those roots will not expand, and those trees will never. They'll be skinny little evergreens for most of their life until they die. That's all I have. Thank you for letting me.
Can I ask a
Tom.
question?
Sure.
When you say screening, do you mean that you don't want to be able to see the array, period?
I don't think that's possible.
But that's your desire?
It would be, but it's not possible. And I don't know that the regulations say that. I think it's the regulations point to the fact that it would have to be practical. So to me, the issue is not the number of trees. That's doable. It's that you can't immediately put in 20-foot trees.
Right.
So to me, it's the number of trees that's important. And the practical piece would be that they could be 6 to 8 foot trees to start with. But the number of trees, that is doable. There's no, I mean, you can't say that that's not doable. That's doable. I do realize you can't screen it day one, but over time it could be.
Now, your 200 trees were just to take care of the mud mill view, not the concerns that people have said relative to Sneller view?
I don't think, I think he's going to show you that there is no view from there. You won't be able to see it.
Okay.
And I would agree with that. And I don't know if 200 is the right number. I'm just guessing. But I think that they need to be, if you look at that McKinley picture, I mean, I don't, it's going to be, I know I'm going to be probably gone before those things grow up. They're pretty sparse. So, I think a better job could be done.
You had mentioned we can't go back, unfortunately. That project was done before the moratorium.
Mhm.
They, in fact, their approval was getting ready to expire. They came in front of us to get an extension, and we denied it because we knew that moratorium was coming
Okay.
or was already in place.
Okay.
But we learned.
I have a
Okay.
question. On this photograph, you said, was taken from Sneller looking south?
To McKinley. Yes. So-
Okay, oh, that,
Of the McKinley, that's the existing McKinley project.
yes, but if I was on Sneller,
That would be, I took it from my car on Sneller Road. Just to give you an idea of what I think Mud Mill is going to look like.
I understand that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, drive by, you'll see it.
We have.
Okay. So, and listen, I'm not against the project. I've said that before. I just wanted to have it done as best it can be done. I know these things are already in motion. Our government's, I can't stop that, but at least we can make it be in accordance with these regulations that were developed to minimize the view. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mrs. Boyke.
Might as well speak. Judy Boyke, 6303 Muskrat Bay Road. Just a couple questions. Can we find out what the manufacturer, who the manufacturer is of the panels that are going to be used and what their materials are going to be? Because I believe that would reflect on the also situation with the wells. And if there were any damaging or leakage or anything, it may a possibility of contaminating the ground. And I don't recall if it was ever discussed, is this private solar or will this be part of, so a package is going to be opened up to any possible residential people? Those are my two questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to address the board? Given nobody's approaching, we will close the public input. And as I mentioned, the Benderson development, the applicant has asked to be removed from the agenda tonight. After we get through the next two agenda items, we will have a little bit of a discussion on it. So with that being said, we will go right into the Bartell South project. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Steve Darkangelo. I'm with Klepper Hunt and Hyatt. I'm representing Renewa Energy, who is the developer, and Gallhead. Regarding this project, solar 5 megawatt solar project off of Mud Mill Road. And I'm open to any questions that may be had, but it's our understanding that we would like to address some concerns that were raised in a public hearing last month. And I think that the majority of those dealt with visual impact that this would have on the public, those immediately living near the area, and those who, as your resident mentioned, are just commuting, driving on Mud Mill Road. Any other comments or questions or concerns, I'd be glad to answer as well.
Okay, why don't you go through the revisions that you've made and then we'll open
Good.
up to questions.
If you don't mind, I have.
No,
some.
please do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I
Could
provided you with
could You give one
certain.
and then a couple on this side, please. Yeah.
These are provided because we'd like to go through some, basically these same photos that we provided, and knowing that your back is to the screen, you can go through these as we do without having to turn around. But what we did regarding concerns for visual there is we went out onto Ladd Road, Sneller Road, Mud Mill Road, and out onto 81. We took an additional 92 photographs, and of those 92 photographs, we identified that we could see 5 that are, the project is visible. All of those are from Mud Mill Road. In doing that, what we did, these panels are will be approximately 14 feet tall. We have a 16-foot target that we put on the end of a surveying rod. And we see if we can see that from various locations. So when I say that we could see it from 5 locations, we could see that target from 5 locations of the 92 that we looked at on Ladd Road, Mud Mill, Sneller, and 81. And we certainly do not deny that Mud Mill Road is certainly a view shed that's going to be impacted by this project. Without a doubt, there's views through there. The image that's up there on the screen right now, the most prominent views are across the current property owner's garden there that's just to the southeast of his home. And then again, when you go up further north of his home.
Excuse me
And-
1 second.
Yes,
Steve, can you have him the pointer? Sure. Oh, great. That'll help.
so right through here, there's a pretty prominent view shed. His garden is there, the property owners, and you can see right through to where these panels will be. And pretty much along this stretch of the road. And again, this stretch of the road, it's there is some vegetation here now, but a large portion of that is open because the agricultural operation would come through here with tractors. So there's I won't call it a road, but he fords the stream here to get through. And what growth is here is very thin. It's not very dense at all. The other view that we think, we want to be concerned about is right up in here where the utility poles go. Unfortunately, the utility poles have a fairly dynamic impact on view. It's 5 utility poles. They're only about 30 feet apart from one another, and every one of them has equipment on it. And we don't deny that they're unsightly. We wish we could get by without them, but it is a requirement of this type of installation. So here are our impacts. What we might see here from the poles right through here and through here. We had previously shown vegetation along this stretch here, and it is it's within the required setback area of the wetland, but it's not in the wetland that we've established a more densely placed vegetation along these 2 stretches. Now, what we've done since the meeting last month, is we've added an additional 11 sugar maple trees, 66 white spruce, 13 eastern hemlock. We've also added 80 gray dogwood and 82 vernal witch hazel. So we've substantially increased what was originally shown for the density along these two stretches here. In order to screen this, and we do agree with what your resident said, this is screening. This does not hide the facility. I mean, we wish that it did, but it doesn't. And, you know, the impact that they have is time related. Now, initially, these plantings will be put in, our specification is 7 to 8 feet in height. So you'll see various deciduous and coniferous trees that would go in here. They would be roughly in that 7 to 8 foot range. And some of the illustrations that we have on further slides show a growth of about what they might look like from 5 to 8 years growth. Regarding the concern for whether or not they survive, these have been selected to be so that they will grow well in this area. And quite honestly, some of them actually thrive. The witch hazel, the dogwood, they like wet feet. They'll do well in this area. The other trees, they're not in the wetland, they're in the buffer. During periods of drought, they will actually be assisted by the fact that they're near a water source, so they might survive better. But our client has no problem with understanding that the vegetative growth that's shown here for screening is part of a site plan approval. And if it were to be lost due to they don't take, they die, or if a wind event comes through and takes out some of those trees, it's their understanding that they would be replaced. That again, an effort to put a vegetative screening element in would be replaced if that was damaged. So certainly they've expressed to us that if that was a concern, that's certainly something that they understand to be their responsibility. Could you advance the slide, please? This series of photographs kind of go with what I gave to you there. So this is coming from the north. I think you would have just passed Pete Paragon's storage facility there. His equipment storage would be on your right-hand side. You're heading south on Mud Mill Road, and you're approaching the entranceway, which is right here onto the site, or the proposed entrance. So this is a new entrance. And here are the utility poles that are part of this project: 1, 2, 3, 4, and this one out here at the road 5. Those are the interconnection for the power coming in and getting from the site to the grid. The trees that we've shown here, this represents them after about 5 to 8 years, as I said, and all these illustrations are roughly about that same time frame. They don't screen or hide these poles. And I think Jim talked about this at the last meeting. The intention here, though, is to try to make it so that there's some sense that your eye is not directly drawn to the utility poles, but rather we soften the landscape with the vegetation. And that's the attempt here. Unfortunately, with utility poles being right up close to the road, it is a difficult matter to try to screen them. And certainly it's very difficult because of their height to try to hide them. I don't want to, I just realized this in talking with someone before. I don't want to imply that these poles look just like this. They do not show the transformers and the equipment that would be on these poles. And I apologize for not having done that because I didn't realize it until just before I came here this evening. But these poles will all have equipment on it. And again, I point that out because we do recognize that as a visual deterrent to a project such as this. But unfortunately, it's a reality of this type of project. That's all I can say, I guess. Could you advance? This is the view from where right now, right through here, there's a very large opening. in this little bit of a hedgerow that currently exists. And this is where the property owner has made somewhat of a road in order to get access from this front field to the back field. And it is very open. We recognize that. So that's why we wanted to take this image and show what it might look like. This is showing a mix of the tree growth that we're proposing, and this is shown on our planting plan. Mix of evergreens and deciduous trees. And this is what it would look like after approximately 5 to 8 years. It's fairly dense. Again, the color represents a fall foliage. Those trees will have lost their leaves in another 2 months from this photo. So it will be somewhat thinner, without a doubt, but we were trying to present what it would look like at one point in time through the course of the year. And again, will this hide it? No, it will not necessarily hide this project that would be behind it. The attempt is to screen it and with natural vegetation to do so in a manner that really softens the view so that we have a view that continues to look something similar to what it is now, a natural landscape. This is the current property owner's garden. He has a mum planting in here, and from the road here, you are looking down in elevation. And here you can see, we show the array in the background there. So those are solar panels that are presented there. These are the plantings that we have, and these are plantings after a few years. And you can see that they are indeed not hiding that project, that solar array. The panels are visible. But again, the attempt here is to soften that view, to make it so that your eye does not focus on the panels, and so that the view shed is certainly, well, it's not maintained, it's also not completely degraded. So the view shed from here, from Mud Mill Road, as someone were driving, they're not looking at something that draws attention to their eye and maybe is even distractive, and is not a good view. So we try to dress up the view shed a little bit. Here's from 81, and this is showing this little bit of image here is trying to show what direction you would look in. From here, we don't think there'll be any visible component of the project. We do have a 16-foot tall target out there right now. It's not huge, but that's what we use to see, and you cannot see it from this location. We can, no, we don't need to go through them. I mean, but if anyone has a particular concern or a location, like I said, the only locations that we saw on 92 photographs where we could actually see this target, and when I say see it, I'd have to, point it out. Actually, right here is one where you can see it. If you were to look back there, right there, you would see the individual holding the target. And this is right off of the current property owner's barn and from the shoulder of Mud Mill Road. The array will be right out in here, and you can see our individual. If you look closely, he's out there. Our attempt would be to screen this, and that's what that image I showed would screen this. And quite honestly, from this view here, it would screen it quite well, because you are looking a little bit higher in grade in front of this, and the plantings here may be a little more effective from the shoulder of the road than some of the other ones. But no, I don't think there's a need to go through all 55. But I'd be glad, if anyone has any questions about this issue of screening, certainly I'd be glad to address it as best I could.
Is there something that shows the Mud Mill aerial elevation, but at a closer view of the plantings so we can see how they're staggered and what's where?
Well, nothing better than our site plan.
See this?
Yeah.
I mean, closer up. So we can see
On
the
the
detail of the.
on the on the project submittal, there is a planting plan and it will have all of the plants that would go in. It would have the number and again, it's I think on the site plan, you'll see that.
You digging that up, Mark?
Yeah, I just. Where it says plant schedule.
Yeah. Yeah, so that one there shows, that was the original, so that drawing shows the original plantings that we were presenting. And since then, our current plan has the addition that I talked about, the 11 sugar maples, 66 white spruce, 13 hemlocks, and then the dogwood and the witch hazel, which is about 160 plantings total between those two. I do have one copy of that sheet that I'm referring to. And I can make sure that we get all of those in subsequent submittals if there's if this were referred to the town board.
See, Mark, it looks like C 1.01.
No, I believe that's the original and you would see the quantity. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. No, that quantity is correct. Yes, and yes, that's the correct quantity there where we just showed. And at the scale, it is difficult to identify the individual plantings. If you'll notice, we show the dogwood and the witch hazel having the same symbol. They're going to be planted in clusters, so they will intermingle.
I assume the plantings are on the outside of the fence?
They are, yes. The fence line is that heavier dash line that you can see inside. We're just outside of this one, that's not directly the fence line, but that's close to where the fence line is. So the array is back in there and the vegetative screen is, I think it's roughly about 180 feet from the location of the fence back to that vegetation. And I did.
Another question, the equipment that's on these poles, what color are they going to be?
I'm sorry, but I can't answer it. I mean, generally, they have a lot of stainless steel components, so they do have a sheen to them. They're shiny. Often the cans are painted a bright color, white often. Manufacturers have not been selected. I know one of your residents asked about manufacturers of the panels that are proposed. Unfortunately, supply chain, the exact pieces of equipment will not be known until really the project goes to bid and is underway. So I couldn't say, but if there was something that you didn't want, I suppose we could try to see whether or not, I mean, if you were to say, a bright red, a bright color that might distract a driver, and we wouldn't want that, I think we could certainly do this. There's similar pieces of equipment that are on utility poles now. I mean, there's nothing different. They're transformers, they're inverters. We see those on utility poles now alongside our roadways. Unfortunately, this is, 5 of them right together. I guess that's,
I was just thinking if they were black, they would really stand out like a sore thumb.
yeah.
Opposed to, a lighter color or gray or sky color.
I don't know, but I can certainly bring that back to see if we can, if there is an opportunity to select color, we could certainly let, the project owner know that, hey, whatever we can do to tone down the color of the equipment, that would be best.
Great, thank you.
Go through, Mr. Duval, questions?
Yes. You answered my question regarding the number of trees. What can you tell us about the materials
that'll be used for the racks and the panels?
Well, the racks are galvanized steel, as your homeowner said. They're driven into the ground, either screwed or driven, depending upon the soil conditions. The depth of penetration is anywhere from, I'm going to say, 36 inches to maybe 48, probably 3 to 4 feet deep. They're driven in. The steel work is galvanized generally. Almost all of the steel is galvanized. The panels are they're a solar panel that has a glass cover. The glass is people have asked about reflective. Does it reflect light? They're actually designed to absorb as much sunlight as possible. So they generally don't have a high reflectance to them. They're designed to have a very low reflectance. They want to absorb light. I don't know the inner workings of a solar panel, but they're primarily silica, and through the magic of excited electrons, they create electricity. Again, I don't know the details of that, but the materials are generally inert. I know that may not be comforting to the people. That may not be enough. I know that something was presented to the board regarding a study done at North Carolina State University that talks about what the components of these are, what is the potential release in the event of let's say, a wind event that damages them. They are safety glass like that of a windshield on your car. The glass doesn't shatter, the glass will break, but stay intact. The external components are pretty inert, steel. Some of it is indeed galvanized, but it's steel. The internal components are electronics. Again, I don't know the details, but generally they are considered to be inert materials. I don't know that there's any studies, and I have looked to show that there are solar sites, and there are solar sites in different parts of the country that have actually lived out their life and have been dismantled. I've not found anything that has given indication that there has been a contamination event from a solar facility. Not to say that they're not out there. Europe has been using some of these for longer than we have. I can't say that I've found anything that's related to theirs, but there's certainly nothing that stands out in the literature about these presenting an environmental threat.
Okay, well, it was expressed about the poles going into the ground and possibly affecting the well water.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's galvanized pipe. I believe they're always galvanized. If not, they're steel. The galvanized pipe is what we often use, or certainly historically have used for the transmission of water, even potable water. My home has an old water line, and my service is galvanized. So galvanized pipe is a means of conveying water in many cases. I think copper is more common today. I don't believe that there's ever been a transition from galvanized to copper because of a concern for contamination, but rather because it's a material that survives in the condition, in the buried condition, better. So I don't believe that the degradation of galvanized pipe, which galvanization is a zinc component. I don't know of anything that would necessarily present a concern there. Might there be a release of zinc if it was galvanized, or iron if they're steel? Certainly. A pipe in the ground rusting is going to give off iron. Is the amount significant enough that it would result in contamination to an aquifer? I mean, I'm in the business where you can't guess, but that's one that I wouldn't say it's a guess. An educated understanding of the complexities of all that would indicate to me that the concentration would not reach anything that would be of concern to a drinking water source.
Okay, that's all I have.
Mr. Abbey?
I'm all set for now.
Mr. Snyder?
The screening recommendation or desire by the first gentleman stood up. I think if a double row of trees 15 feet apart, alternating for the second row, if that's doable, I see that as a viable screening situation for Mud Mill. I think the other possibility, I don't believe we have to worry about expense. That's not my job. But the other thing that might be wise in this situation is like we did on the used car lot on Route 11, we had a berm installed and then the trees on top of that. So you got a certain amount of coverage already with the berm, and then the trees on top of that. I don't know if that's something that's possible. The only area that I'm personally concerned about is really Mud Mill, not because I used to live on Mud Mill. But at the same time, when I tend to drive by a couple of systems that are either in our town or an adjacent town, I really don't pay any attention to them. I know what they are. Had this come up when I lived on Mud Mill and it was going to be behind my house, I personally wouldn't have bothered. It wouldn't have bothered me, because if the alternative is apartment buildings or individual houses and traffic and roads and kids on their bicycles and stuff, that's more of a concern to me than looking at a bunch of solar panels. I think we still should get the information from the installer you guys, that the galvanized pipes driven into the ground is not going to be a problem. Because galvanized pipes are no longer used for water. It's either concrete, or it's cast iron, or it's PVC. They eliminated that for a reason. I'd like not to. Now, if we can find where Mr. Party's aquifer goes, and we can be assured that we won't be putting driving pipes into that area, then I think that'd be great. I don't know. Jamie, is the aquifer that your wells are on, is it something that can be plotted or not?
I'm not sure. The reason why I bring it up is concerned with the way they're placed on the three different properties. Kind of goes that way. And I don't know, in front of my house, every water comes through the road and they keep it. It's not the town, there is a tail of water.
Yeah, I would think that groundwater movement across this site is heading toward the lake. So it would be from generally from the west towards the south, to the northeast over toward the lake.
If it was always
Yeah.
moving towards the lake, then
Yep.
you wouldn't have to worry about it, because any contamination is just going to take care of the the property owner's son's house.
Yeah.
That's across the road towards the lake.
Yeah, well, the way I would like to address the question is to show that there's no contamination to anyone's property, whether it's an aquifer that's affecting one individual who's raised a concern or anyone else. And I think we'll be able to show that. I really don't think there's, I'm not sure that, I think what we'll find is that there's no reason that there's no indicators that putting pipes like this in the ground will result in contamination to groundwater. And that's what we want to show, regardless if it's this individual's well or someone else's, or just an aquifer that is here in the township. So we'll get something to address that. I don't know exactly what it'll be, but because sometimes it's, evidence to show that something doesn't happen is difficult to find, but we'll certainly look and see what we can do to, give you a level of confidence that this isn't doing something that's going to have a negative impact upon any aquifer or the groundwater that's beneath that's running through here, the town, that whether someone's using it as a drinking water source or whether it surfaces into a receiving stream or the lake.
I'm done for now.
Mr. Bloss.
The concern with contaminating a well. I wonder if anybody's checked into the possibility of municipal water to these houses that possibly could be contaminated. I say a possibility. I don't know if they can contaminate them, but if there's a chance, can't we check to see how close municipal water is available?
We haven't
It's
done
on,
that.
I know it's on Mud Mill Road.
Yeah.
Mr. Pardee, could you answer that question? I thought they continued right on past there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. What about the other end on where Pardee becomes Sneller? McKinley? Okay.
But it does run all the way up 81, but the town or the county won't, water department won't on the tap and direct it. I know when the J&J went in on the corner, they wanted to tap into the water and they wouldn't allow it.
I was under the idea that coming off of Mud Mill Road, there's a couple of relatively new places in there that they were on municipal.
I think all of them serve.
I'm pretty sure it is, yeah. I go by the hydrants.
Water come up the other part into the water. They've got,
Yeah. So, I think, I think we should investigate that to see what the possibility is, cost, whatever. So that, we could eliminate the possibility of somebody getting a contaminated well. That's all I got.
So the stakes that hold these up, they go 3 to 4 foot into the ground, correct?
Yeah, they use a couple of different methods. One is to screw them in and another is to drive them in. And I would defer to respond to you once I speak with them, because I don't know the method that's been selected. And to be very honest, I'm not involved in the construction of these projects. So unfortunately, I haven't seen that for myself. And when I say they're somewhere from 3 to 4 feet, that's just based on some experience that I've had with similar type things. They might come back and say, hey, when we use the screw ones, they're in, 22 inches. And if we drive them, they're in 38 inches. I don't know, but I can see if I can answer that question though, and get that for you.
Neil, based on what we're hearing tonight, do you think we will forward this to the town board and have them take over these concerns that we're talking about, or is it coming back to?
Obligation is to vet out the issue and to report to the town board and recommend. So recommendation, it's not like a PUD where we recommend approval or disapproval. Your recommendations would include, I would think, recommendations about protecting the environment, a recommendation about protecting the neighbors as far as the view shed goes, a recommendation, concerning the wells and the groundwater and those things. So they pay particular attention to that in their approval process.
Okay.
So I mean, you will be, you could do it tonight based on what you have, if that was the question around.
Yes. So one of the questions I would want the board to know is based on the information you come back with, however far down they're drilled or pounded into the ground, could that reach the water that is providing well water for the neighboring properties?
No, I think,
I think not as well, but I don't know.
yeah, we do have, I can get it, and again, I don't have it in my memory or with me, but there's a geotechnical investigation done on the property for the purpose of this project, and the depth of water table at the location where the array is going to go is greater than 4 feet. So nothing that we're doing is going to go into the water table, but again, the concern could be, does something leach off of this pipe and get into the groundwater? And what we're going to try to show you is that that concern should not concern people. I really seriously believe that we're going to be able to find evidence to suggest that that should not be a concern. I certainly don't want people worrying about groundwater contamination, either adjacent to their home because they just don't want the groundwater contaminated, or because they utilize groundwater as a drinking water source for their family. I would like to express that, get something to you that secures that concern, or ends that concern for people.
Great. We want that too.
One question that was asked by one of your residents was, is it a public or private use of power? So this is a private entity that is going in and constructing this, but the power that's generated from this goes into the grid and is sold locally. You can buy this power if you're, everyone here is a National Grid customer. You can buy this power, and the savings is about 10% on your bill if you state that you want to buy power from a solar installation. So these that are going in right now are providing an opportunity for people to see a reduction. And without knowing exactly how it works, it's a manner that as one goes in like this, there becomes more availability for people to sign up for solar. That solar complement, if you put that notification to Niagara Mohawk, requires Niagara Mohawk to purchase the power from these locations, transmit it just through the system, but the savings is roughly 10% to those people who sign up. So.
Thank you for that.
Didn't I read when I did a minute, wasn't there another study that has to be done? I don't know, for Indians or?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
We're currently, so here's the status of a couple of things that are still going on regarding the project. We are waiting for a wetland, or we are going to need a wetlands permit. So we are doing work in what is New York State DEC designated wetlands. We need to cross the stream at one point, and we're doing some work. The plantings themselves require a permit because they're going to be within the 100-foot buffer of the wetland. So we're in the process of getting a wetland permit. Our stormwater permit is in the process, in the sense that it's been issued as a draft, but it won't be final until we do final drawings. And we are working with the State Historic Preservation Office. They have asked for a phase 1A and archaeological investigation. So that's going to take place as well. And I think the concern for that is due to the fact that the site is near the lake. And historically, they have identified some archaeological sensitive areas near the lake. And as a result, they've asked for that to be completed here. So that there's some things to be done before this project.
Right, so
Can be final.
so I don't think we can make any kind of a recommendation, can we, until those studies are done and we see them?
You could make a.
You can make a recommendation. Those will have to be completed, as a part of the permitting process. But you can make a recommendation.
The town board will need to make sure that that's in place.
Yeah, I think so your recommendation to the town board, any approval that they give would be contingent upon the completion of any
I
outstanding.
just feel that we as a planning board, that's normally something that we do, and that we would hand a package to the town board that's complete, and not something that they've got to, now make sure you get these other permits or whatever.
That's true. This isn't normal.
Well, also, there's always permits that aren't complete when you approve the site plan, and this isn't even site plan approval. The big difference here is you're not, this board is not making a secret determination. And the cultural resource issue would need to be resolved before the town board could make a secret determination, or the planning board, but in this case, you're not doing it. The town board is the lead agency, and they're going to be the ones who make the secret determination. Relative to wetlands and those types of things, this board regularly approves projects where there are permits that need to be obtained, including wetlands and those types of things, after the site plan approval is given. So it's contingent upon obtaining of approval.
You're just recommending the way the legislations work. You're gonna, issues report and recommend, and make recommendations. Nothing that you do is gonna be final with the project.
Good with that?
No, I'm not okay with it, but I mean, there's 5 members on the board, so I just feel that we are turning something over to the town board, which is not complete, that they've got to do a bunch of things. And it isn't like the town board sits here and begs for projects to do or things to do. They're busy doing what they're doing. So I just feel a little guilty about saying that we're gonna say blah, 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 but by the way, town board, make sure the following 10 things are done before you, but
That's the way the statute was written.
And for the record, we work way harder than they do. Where's the TV? I understand what you're saying, but this is this process. I wanted to agree with Mr. Snyder relative to the berm. I was going to bring that up.
Okay.
And it's staggering the evergreens to help.
Yep.
Hard to tell with this. Throwing in the regular trees in there for some breaking it up is nice, but the evergreens give year-round protection of visibility. And then lastly, I just want to commend your team for meeting with our resident and taking them out to the site and viewing that. So I very much appreciate that.
Certainly.
And with that, I'll go to Steve for questions.
I think I'm all set. Thank you.
All set.
Mark.
Also,
So will you propose a recommendation?
You can do a proposed finding report and recommendation, then you can do a motion to send it up to the town board if you so choose. Okay?
Yep.
The following are the proposed findings, report, and recommendations of the town of Cicero Planning Board. 1, in accordance with section 208 of the town code of the town of Cicero, the planning board has completed its review of the application known as Martell South PVI LLC Mud Mill Road, tax map number 108-120.1. 2, the applicant is seeking approval of a tier 3 solar energy system to be located at Mudville Road, tax map 108-120.1. 3, the town of Cicero Planning Board is cognizant of the scope of the project and has undertaken an extensive review of the potential impacts of the proposed project. 4, the town of Cicero Planning Board has reviewed the material submitted by the applicant, its consulting engineer, the environmental assessment form, as well as the additional documentation provided and information provided by the applicant, including additional materials and or studies concerning the environmental and health related issues. Next, the planning board notes that there needs to be a final review and approval of the stormwater prevention plan and wetland permitting. 6, in the process of this review, the town of Cicero Planning Board made an extensive inquiry into the potential impact of the proposed project on the surrounding neighborhood and community at large, including but not limited to concerns regarding the view shed at Mud Mill and Smeller Road. 7, at the suggestion of the planning board, the applicant has increased the proposed landscaping and modified the project to reduce the impact of the proposed project on the neighboring community, including the view shed. The planning board recommends that any and all methods to screen the property should not only be required to be implemented, but continuously maintained throughout the life of the project. 8, the planning board notes that the town board notes to the town board that the neighboring property owners have expressed concerns regarding the environmental impact of the project on their property, including the groundwater and wells. According to the planning board, requested the town board pay particular attention to mitigating any environmental impact of the project as it relates to these property owners and issues. 9, the planning board recommends that the town board investigate the environmental impact of the use of galvanized piping in regard to this project. Moreover, the planning board recommends that the town board pay particular attention to protecting any aquifer, well, and or groundwater source. 10, the town of Cicero planning board recommends that any approval of this application by the town board include any and all currently proposed mitigation plans and any other measures necessary to preserve and protect the interests of the neighboring property owners. And if that is acceptable, somebody would make a motion to adopt those findings and report the recommendations of the town of Cicero planning board.
Do you think we need to add, looking at a berm? Assuming the rest of the board agrees.
I can add that into the findings. So the, what we'll add is that the protection of the view shed including the installation of a berm, but it does kind of mention.
Yeah, in fact, you can add the paragraph.
I'll add it.
Okay, any questions? Any questions from you?
No, I think all that's fine.
So you're gonna make a motion that to adopt the findings report recommendations of the town of Cicero planning board.
I'll make that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Duval,
Yes.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss?
Yes.
I vote yes.
You're gonna move to the adoption of the resolution of the minutes of this foregoing findings report and recommendations of the town of Cicero planning board as adopted here and be forwarded to the town board as required by section 208 of the town of Cicero town code.
Would somebody like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Duval,
Yes.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss,
Yes.
and I vote yes. We're all set. We're good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, Nan.
She made the rules. Next item on the agenda is for vision development. This is for 2-lot subdivision at the Dunkin' Donuts up in Brewerton. Applicant here. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you today?
I'm doing well.
Been a while since I saw you all.
Been a while.
Yeah, it's been a crazy few years, huh?
It's been 2 years.
Yeah, it's been more than that. I think it's been like almost 4.
It's a 31 project.
Yeah, about 4 years. Just a quick introductory on this. This is the Kinney Drugs Plaza at the intersection of Bartel and Route 11. Been there almost 20 years now. Ed Wallach, who is one of the larger franchisees in the Northeast, has been my tenant there for a super long time. His lease is coming up and he's on a push to buy everything. So we kind of worked something out to sell him this building. He's going to buy the building with the AT&T and his Dunkin' Donuts in it. The other alternative was he was going to build one down the road. So we just worked something out because the franchise is making him do a complete remodel. They want 2 drive-throughs now after COVID, you know how that goes. They want bypass lanes and everything. So he has a substantial amount of money. He's going to invest into the property, fixing the place up, completely remodeling it inside and out. And he's like, I really would like to own this to put $1 million or whatever he's going to put into it. I don't know how much he has planned, but I know it's substantial. So I worked it out with him. We tried to come up with a way to break this up so the property would still function properly. All the parking spaces are to code, drive aisles are to code. Him and I have worked out, we're 98% done with a reciprocal easement agreement where we're gonna be able to park back and forth, drive back and forth, share the drainage, any utility easements we need amongst my property or hit what will be his if he closes on it. And also share the pylon sign out by the road that's existing. No big plans to really change too much at the site other than the reconfiguration of his drive-through and move that concrete curb island with the 3 light poles over towards the Kinney's, so it can accommodate his double lane drive-through. I don't know if you guys have any questions, comments. Did I miss something?
Mr. Duval, any questions?
I'm good.
Mark, can you grab the aerial? Can you grab an aerial while we're going through questions? Mr. Abbey?
I'm all set also.
Mr. Snyder?
This would, Neil, we'd need a cross access.
Well, I think that's a reciprocal easement agreement he was talking.
Oh,
about.
yes, sir. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to use fancy terms.
Yeah.
I figured you guys had worked on so many of these by now. My bad. Basically, we're gonna have reciprocal everything. We're gonna share, he's gonna let me continue to plow it and then I'll bill him. And it's basically an agreement that says we can, it's like it's still one property, but there's 2 owners and we just can park back and he can park customers on my lot. I can park them on his lot. We can drive back and forth.
You're talking about cross access from the town.
Why is the town going in there? Oh, something new I don't know about?
They like cross access agreements.
That's why I'm pulling an aerial up.
that?
That's why I'm pulling up the aerial.
Yeah, no,
I know that,
cross access agreement, which will allow them to get all the way through. So
well, you guys would have to go through the Syracuse Utilities office building complex that got built in the back, which isn't on that aerial. Although I think their building is offset enough where you mean like take that road all the way through?
This road here?
I don't know.
No, the other one. Yes, sir. That one there,
To
that's
the left of where it says Duncan, that's where the construction company is.
right behind Dunkin' Donuts.
Right there, yep.
Well, there's a housing development way in the back that was
Right.
done by, shoot, what was the guy's name? He was the guy that sold me where the Kinney's is. It used to be Bob's True Value, Bob, oh my God, I'm getting old. Shoot. Yeah, that most of that's been developed back there now. That's pretty old aerial.
Yeah.
Wickham, you're the man.
The construction company actually has a road. As you look at that right there, about, the road that goes between McDonald's and Duncan ends right there and the construction company begins. Is a gate right there.
There's no gate there, I don't
Well, then they-
think, unless they added it.
Wow. I'm pretty sure it was still there the last time I went through there, but
They did put a gate in? Oh, okay. Yeah, because I worked with them. That was all part of the project originally. It was just leftover land and they had the fire in their main building. And when the dad retired, Gene, the kids took over and they wanted to build a nice new office for themselves and they came to me and that's how they picked up the stuff in the back. Plus, they wanted to be able to work with me so they could access the traffic light for some of their traffic, because apparently it's, I mean, we all know traffic is pretty difficult to get in and out of their current yard. So they tied that whole project together and they can,
so the Dunkin' Donuts and Kinney's are just totally separate.
that is correct. They would be if this went through. Yeah,
Okay.
they'd be separate owners.
Theoretically, no one will really know that.
No, it's
I
just
mean,
a
we know it,
magic
But
ghost line.
all
that goes
we're gonna
through.
see is a second driveway for Dunkin' Donuts.
That's it. Literally everything else is the same.
Everything else stays the same.
Correct. We're not changing the site in any other way. The only thing he's doing is moving the current concrete island with the 3 light poles that's next to Duncan now over 13 feet, so he can put a 12-foot lane in, or maybe it's 12.5 feet to put an 11.5-foot lane in. I don't know. You got it, something like that. But it's all the code. And we made sure I had the surveyor measure out all the driveways and everything to make sure nothing was below the required town code roads or parking space sizes or any of that. So it's literally gonna
County
look the
site?
same.
Steve, the county site's more current or like live?
You want to see the property boundaries that you want to see?
What's going on behind it?
Oh, you mean as far as the, yeah, it might be, yeah. Or, yeah, the, commentary.
You could probably go to Street View and it might show you. Google Earth won't show it.
Well, it just depends on the date.
You know what you need, that Annex app. That thing's awesome.
So it's the office building that's in the back, right?
Correct, sir. Yeah,
Mhm.
Syracuse Utilities.
Yeah, they were up on 11 and they moved it.
They
back.
own everything north of
Their access
McDonald's.
Through the driveway next to McDonald's. That's where their access is. So
Right.
What's the question?
So that,
I'm
So-
not even sure what you do with this process, but you know, you said you got an REA between the two sites, right?
There is an REA right now. McDonald's is using that driveway to the light. I did an REA with Syracuse Utilities so they could access the light from the back. And then there's gonna be one between Ed Wallach of Dunkin' Donuts and his entity and me for Kinney's. So everybody will be able to connect and use it.
I see the REA. Ain't ready with that.
Sure, yeah. I mean, do you want to look at a draft? You want to wait till it's time? Okay. We're literally down to just discussing the restrictions that corporate wants to try to jam in there.
That's right.
Yeah, they're trying to get me. Well, Syracuse Utilities bought all the stuff behind, so they own all that. So it does show that.
so they're all set as far as they don't need a cross connection access.
If you look at the subdivision map, it showed McDonald's and Corsicore, which is Syracuse Utilities. If you look at that map, it was up, it showed the egress easement. The access, it's on there.
Yeah, it says.
Their drive, there's their drive.
Yeah, because we delineated that dotted line all the way over to McDonald's. That's pretty much a permanent road. Nobody can change it. McDonald's does.
Cross access between lot 2A and lot 2B.
I had that question because there's a road, a driveway that goes along the back of the properties.
Yeah, that's ours. That's part of the parking lot. That was the flow to go
I want to
around.
make sure that that flow stays with your
Oh, yeah,
connection.
it's all there.
I think that's what's being covered by the reciprocal.
Yeah, the reciprocal easement agreement covers all the driveways are gonna stay the same. I think the only thing that Duncan requested from me was the driveway in the back right now is 2 lane, it's 2-way traffic.
And it's
And
used.
because he's going to a 2 drive-through thing, he wanted to make it 1-way. So there wouldn't be traffic from Kenny going in the back and then going behind his building. Because you didn't want to have 2 lanes of traffic. Apparently that's the big thing. One way. So you come in Bartel, go around the back of Duncan, both those lanes would now be 2-way. Or I mean 1-way, heading towards Kenny's. You can still go to Kenny's or you can go into the Dunkin' drive. So that will still be open back and forth between the property, 1-way.
So there needs to be a sign, do not enter. So you can't go from the Kinney property to Dunkin' Donuts.
Along the back.
Yeah, along the back.
Then you probably want to put, well, what you're gonna do is take that curb island back, so there's just 1 lane coming to the Kenny's, so, but yes, the sign probably would be out there. Although we don't know that. I had 5 buildings in Cicero, in my car. I think everyone could have tried after COVID. The lady with the flip flop ran into 58, 59, just had somebody have a 2-car down the road at 7901 and they hit the light pole. And then it's crazy. People are, I'm like, what the hell?
We have so many collision places now in Cicero, they probably, some collusion
They're
there.
even adding some new ones now.
Yeah,
Caliber's
right.
coming to town.
I'll let you take a peek at that REA before you have it signed, just in case we need it.
That's fine with me. Yeah, sure. You want
And
it.
it's changing the traffic pattern a little bit.
Well, there's 1-way traffic behind Kinney's now. It's not 2-way behind Kinney's. They also have 2 lanes that go behind Kinney's, one for the drive-through and one for pass by. So right now, the flow
Mhm.
behind Kinney's is 1-way right now, so. Basically, just gonna make the whole back circulate around. It kind of is consistent, but yeah, I'll run it by you. No big deal.
Any other questions? Did I miss anybody? Steve?
No, thank you.
Yeah. Mark? No. So we need to set a public hearing?
Yes, we do.
We do?
Really? Subdivision.
Next meeting.
Yeah.
You're gonna move to the adoption of the resolution calling for a public hearing in a matter known as minor subdivision, preliminary and final plan. Vision Development, Inc., Patrick Donegan, 9543 Brewerton Road, 2 lots, Duncan subdivision Brewery, and this public hearing shall commence at 6:30 PM or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard at a regularly scheduled meeting of the planning board on Wednesday, December 21st, 2022.
Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Mr. Duval,
Yes.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss.
Yes.
And I vote yes.
All right, thank you. I'll try to get that to you like.
Thank you. So we're gonna go back to the first agenda item, Benderson Development, and have some discussion. Mark wanted to kind of go over some things with us, even though the applicant's not here, so. Mr. Parrish, I open the floor to you, sir.
Yeah, sure. All right, so this is the latest plan that Benderson has submitted in an attempt to address concerns, a number of concerns, but one of them was the truck access to the building was previously perpendicular to the building, so that required, this is the main drive, so let me go to the aerial for a second, just to, so the building's proposed here. This is the main access drive that comes in and goes back to both 5 Star and the plaza, front of the plaza over here. So there was concern about trucks coming in here. So again, they've changed their plan to put in this sawtooth type of configuration. They do have a turning template here that shows that they wouldn't have to encroach on this drive to get into there, although I have some concerns about that and have recommended some changes to further separate this area from the access drive. But the main concern that I wanted to talk to the board about and bring to their attention is, so this shows how you get in, it doesn't show how you get out. And what they've suggested they want to do is, and they did submit a turning template, but it's not with this submittal. They did it in response to my comment. They want to go behind the building. So they want to bring the truck traffic out and behind the building out to Church Street here. But that's going to bring all this truck traffic, and it's pretty tight back here, but they want to bring the truck traffic behind this residential neighborhood. So I want to see if that's going to be something that's acceptable to the board. I don't know. They haven't really provided any ideas to the volume of trucks that would be doing this, but I don't think currently, you've got that sort of impact on the neighborhood. So the question is that going to be acceptable to the board, or do we ask them to address this in a different way, so they don't have to bring the trucks behind the building?
I'm not crazy about that. I'm not crazy about them being on Church Street or driving along the residential. As one board member, and your thoughts?
I was just coming up the left side of the new building and come around it and come back over on the Taft.
Of course, volume's kind of important to know,
Yeah.
along with the actual use that's going to go on in this facility,
Yeah.
accessory.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, they'd have to reduce the parking on the east side of the building if we wanted the trucks to drive around the new building back out to the main
Back to
exit.
Taft.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure that this fits the way they have it. I mean, my personal opinion is that they really need to reduce the size of this building, and if they want it, and they need to have truck docks on the side here, and so they can come in, back in, and then come back out this way or something like that. I mean, I think the building is too big for the site.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and it also brings up the point, Mark's point, is so this is being considered an accessory use to the SRC tech operation, right, Steve? Is
Yep.
that correct?
Right.
And seems awful big. I don't know what their operation is. I think that's something that should be clarified for the board.
Reason being the warehouse use in this zoning is only allowed under accessory use.
Yeah, the warehouse use it's general commercial.
It would be,
here, or-
it'd be general commercial plus to begin.
Yeah, but the site is currently zoned general,
It's regional commercial.
regional commercial.
Yeah.
Okay, and that does not allow warehouse use either.
Not as a standalone.
Right, so
We put the truck docks on the end. Can the building be widened to the west so the square footage could end up being the same?
yeah, I don't know. They'd have to look at that.
I
Possible.
mean, because otherwise we're gonna reduce the building by 50, like 75 feet, right, for the tractor trailer, 53 feet plus the tractor, so it's. So I guess, you know, if we say we want you to drive in the end,
Yeah, and I mean, that's the only thing I can see that kind of works here personally. I mean, they can go back and look at this. I guess what I'd like to be able to communicate back to them is whether this board would want to allow that movement. You know,
I don't
behind
think
the
we wanna
building
push it over to Church Street.
and, you know,
No,
So
Yeah.
it may mean that they've got to remove those 3 double sections of parking.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then,
yeah, I think
They have
it
to
would be
work
up
it
to
out.
them to come up with a
they would have to
solution.
work it out, right?
You know, that's certainly something else that they could consider. In that case, we're gonna want to look at the impact on parking overall on the plaza and
I'd be more comfortable if they sacrifice some of that parking, come in there, back their rigs in. And like you said, when they go out, go back out to Church Street or back out to Taft.
Or some of the building.
so I think the answer, what I should communicate to them is that the board does not want the truck traffic to be going out behind the building
Right.
near the residential
Yep.
area out to Church Street. And they need to come up with a traffic pattern that brings the trucks in and out through that access drive, the main access drive that goes out to Taft Road.
Sounds unanimous.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable with that.
Okay,
lose the parking spots or shorten the building.
Or some of
again,
both-
they
some
can
of
look at any
both.
number of
Take the-
options. Yep.
Take the parking spots.
I
Yeah.
mean, I've been in that parking lot 3 or 4 times in the last 2 weeks. There's gobs of parking. I mean, just even in front of the SOS building, the number of handicap spots that they've got, they're never more than 50% full, if that. And so I don't think the overall parking numbers will be a problem.
Yeah, and I think they had done a parking study at some point when there was some other modifications to the site that were proposed. I don't think ever got completed, right?
I don't,
Steve?
my recollection is they came in and got a site plan to reconfigure the parking lot, but I don't think they did it.
Right.
I don't think
Right.
they did it.
Yeah, so, all right, yeah, that's what I'll communicate back to the applicant and go from there.
Any questions or comments from the team? Do we have a motion to adjourn? Do
So move.
we have a second?
Second.